Well, first and foremost, Megan, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it. I know your time is valuable.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored that you asked me.
Yeah, of course. So I guess to start off, can you give us like a little bit of a background on, what you do?
Sure. So I'm a doctor of health and human performance, and I own a fitness studio in Oceanside, California. It's called Everybody's Fit.
Mhm.
And I offer small group training or private one-on-one training, and I work with people of all levels and ages and abilities. I'm also a senior fitness specialist and fitness nutrition specialist. So I do help others, the aging population, as well as with eating and nutrition. So,
Yeah.
and another specialty that I do is I work with the addiction recovery community.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so I have 4 books that I published on Amazon regarding addiction, and then 2 books about nutrition and metabolism.
Just to kind of
And then of course,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Mhm.
I have my own endeavors on the side with all of the natural bodybuilding.
Yeah. How did you get into like addiction and having an interest in that?
Sure. So I actually did my research study for my doctorate on the influence of exercise on alcohol use disorder.
Mhm.
And basically, my childhood consisted of a mother who was an alcoholic. And when I was 21 years old, I found her deceased on the bathroom floor.
Oh.
So that traumatic incident fueled the fire to help those who, not all treatment forms are meant for everyone. There's not a one size fits all way to, recover from addiction, because it's a cyclical process where anyone is vulnerable for relapse at any time.
Mhm.
And the same can be said for, weight loss and weight gain, and the exercise roller coaster, and how you might lose and gain the same 15 pounds over and over as an adult. And so
Mhm.
it's all about finding what's sustainable, what lifestyle changes can work for you, and without being so drastic one way or the other, so that you can stay consistent.
So a lot of that does have to do with the fact of consistency, right? Because it's like a lot of people can get onto a diet or onto some kind of program, but it's being able to do it consistently for an extended period of time that tends to be the issue.
Exactly. So life presents triggers all the time, whether that be in the addiction setting or in the exercise and eating setting, that can, threaten to derail us. So there's emotional issues in life, just personal relationships, stress, work, any of those. And you can use a substance, even food, as a way to handle that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. So obviously, like, dealing with the trauma of losing your mother played, a huge factor in that. Was it within that decision to pursue this kind of lifestyle? Did you did you know that shortly at that young age that that's what you wanted to do, or was there any other like any other stimulant like throughout your life that encouraged you into this direction?
Well, originally, I was a little bit lost for a while after she passed away, and I had to grow up quickly, and I was trying to find who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And I had a full ride basketball scholarship, and I played in college. So after, I kind of wanted to go into the teaching and the coaching realm, and
Mhm.
that's what my dad was. He's actually the winningest basketball coach in all of California high school
Oh,
history. So I
wow.
have a lot of sports background,
Mhm.
and I kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps. So I got my master's in teaching credential and physical education and health science. And I went about that route, and I coached at a couple high schools. I was the head coach at only 20 years old, didn't know what I was doing. And I was, as young as the girls were, but I had a hard time getting a teaching job because of just the availability and budget cuts. And
Mhm.
I kept getting long-term positions, but I was always low man on the totem pole, so first to go. And it just wasn't, it just didn't seem like it was going to happen. And then I went into personal training. And, I just always had the passion to help others, be that coaching or be that training to become the, better version of themselves. So that's how I got into it. And I started, the whole corporate route as a trainer. And then 10 years ago, I decided to take the risk and open my own small business.
Mhm, mhm. And what kind, so your clients primarily consist of lifestyle or competitive clients?
Oh, like 100% lifestyle.
Lifestyle.
With competition, sometimes I might help with eating or program planning, but
Mhm,
not necessarily. I don't really have many people that come to me of interest of wanting to compete. I
mhm.
might have someone come and say, I kind of want to look stage ready, but I've never trained someone that actually wanted to be on the stage.
Yeah.
My niche seems to be middle age or older.
Mhm,
The younger population is more into different like powerlifting or CrossFit or boot camp element. And I'm more of it's a medical fitness really. So it's a
mhm.
different kind of approach.
So was your approach more functional? Is that kind of the,
More
you know,
functional, more training based, a lot of compound movements with dumbbells and free weights. So it wouldn't be just putting someone on a rotation of machines. It'd be working, different components at once with balance and core, upper or lower body, usually in some sort of compound movement and,
Mhm.
just the basic sets and reps that progress over time.
Yeah. Now you yourself had just recently had a competition. Am I correct in thinking that? I thought I saw something like that on your
Yeah, I did.
Instagram.
I had one in Arizona. What was that? April 9th.
Okay. Well, how did the prep for that go and the whole process go for you?
It went really well. It was only my second time competing in that particular organization,
Mhm.
and I've just been drawn to it. And so I competed in 3 professional pro categories, and then I qualified for. I became the first pro in the one-piece swimsuit. They've never offered that before, so that was
Oh
kind of
wow.
cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I was kind of curious also. You mentioned as you're talking, you're giving a lot of information, and I'm trying to write things down that I could expound on. But one thing that you mentioned, more middle aged and an older population of clients. What is like the main things you tend to see as people get older? What what things would you recommend for those who are getting older to be able to stay fit, stay healthy, as they start, not being able maybe to do as much as they, used to when they were younger?
Well, certainly for females, strength training and resistance training is critical. They have quite the uphill battle with menopause and hormonal imbalances, and that can tend to cause kind of an uphill battle as in terms of losing weight. They get a lot of visceral fat, which is around the belly.
Mhm.
So, and then there's also the threat of osteoporosis and osteopenia, and all of that can be fought off with, or at least marginally prevented with strength training. And the more muscle you have, right, the more fat and calories you burn. So it's
Mhm.
important that kind of the traditional like go on the elliptical for an hour approach is I try to rewire clients' approach that hasn't been effective. So just give me a little trust here and I'm going to show you a different way. And what I
Mhm.
find with women is that if you track their inch loss, not necessarily a scale weight, they will see that they are changing and reshaping their bodies. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to necessarily be like a data driven on the scale approach. And then in terms of men, again, the visceral fat around the belly can be an issue, but I also just find that in both genders, just the sedentary nature, as you become older, you're just less active. And men seem to, in my experience, have difficulty with portion control. So trying to, the exercise part seems to come and they seem to enjoy that, but then doing the things once they get home can be difficult, because they're hungry
Yeah.
and, they can eat a lot, but realizing that, like I'll say, what'd you have for lunch? And they might say salmon and avocado and, green beans. And I'm like, that's great. That's a really good choice. How much avocado did you have? Well, I had the whole avocado. And they're like, well, hang on a second. 1/4 of an avocado is 1 serving. So let's back up here. And so it's just reteaching what portion control is, because sometimes you're not even aware. You can be eating incredibly healthy, and just sometimes, because the term organic or gluten-free is, on a label, it doesn't mean it's calorie-free or fat-free or sugar-free or any of that. So I just find that men have the appetite, and I'm trying to say, okay, well, let's divide up those meals instead of this like huge gorge at the end of the day.
And to your point, sometimes, and I know just from myself, it's difficult to even realize like how much you're eating, because we have like two ways to think about it, right? We have the caloric, how much you're eating, and then like volume of food, right? And sometimes they don't correlate. A lot of times they don't correlate, right? Sometimes you have something that's like not a large volume of food, but calorically is really high. So for example, like something like an avocado can in size be very small, but can have a high like amount of calories in it. So like for me personally, there was a time in my life where I thought I wasn't eating that much, and I wasn't in volume, but calorically I was eating way above my my needs, my energy expenditure needs. So I was always like either maintaining my fat that I wanted to reduce or gaining. And it took me a while to really understand that like macros are important. They're very important. But then there's also like a caloric level that you need to like either be under or surpass depending on what you're trying to, accomplish. So yeah, I definitely like understand where you're coming from with that. I just as far as the women, I just recently saw something about like they gave on Instagram, it was like 6 points or that like benefits why exercise and weight training benefits women. And among like some of the younger generations, and I wonder, it might be with older ones as well. You'll have to tell me this after I'm done with this little spiel, but there's always this, oh, well, if you're lifting weights and you're a woman, like you're going to become like bigger, you're going to start looking like a man. Have you encountered that with like an older or like aged population?
Yes. But I have to explain that the female body doesn't have enough testosterone to become big and bulky like they might assume. It just isn't possible without, adding those hormonal components. So, I've even had like older clients be like, well, I don't want to look like you. And I'm like, I'm not going to make you look like me, it's different. But if you're always using 3-pound weights, like you're not going to get the results. You have to progress over time. And so sometimes just even like saying, okay, going from 5-pounders to 8-pounders is like pulling teeth. And I'm like, no, you're not going to get big and bulky. And, I think that there's some sayings and phrases out there now, like strong, not skinny, and, girls with muscle. And so it's becoming a little bit more accepted. But I just think that it's been ingrained in women's mind that, the men hit the weights and we hit the cardio.
Yeah. You do kind of see that, right? When you walk into a gym, it's like all the guys are at the free weights, and of course it's changing a little bit, with I believe like social media probably plays a part in that too, but generally that's how it is. It's like you'll see the girls doing all the elliptical stuff and all the, for an entire hour, and then they leave and the guys are lifting. And a combination of both would be beneficial for both genders, but it seems like for some people they kind of it can't get out of that mindset. It can be kind of ingrained pretty early. It's hard to get out of it. So
right.
But as far as, so just to kind of go back to the point of the addiction portion of your endeavors, you said that you wrote 4 books. What are these obviously, I'm not asking you to recite every page in the book, but what do these books like kind of consist of? Is there like a theme to each one? Are they trying to
Yeah,
battle a certain topic?
sure. So, well, the central theme, will kind of how I created all the titles, and the series is based on butterflies, because I believe that my mom's spirit is a butterfly, and whenever there's, and about transformation and change, and I've just had different experiences in my life where they're just butterflies always seem to be present, and so I just feel that she's with me in that way. So the first book I wrote was called Biceps and Butterflies, and that's just the memoir of my mom and I and our story, and how, I don't blame her for anything, and I really feel like I got all of her strong qualities and strengths. In terms, she was a world champion baton twirler, and now, I mean, I love being on stage. So something, things like that, and just how sometimes through traumatic incidents we can, find our purpose. And then the second book I wrote is called An Addict's Flight. Again, this play on the butterfly with flight. And in that book, I interviewed 10 different types of addicts. So, I mean, one was sex, gambling, marijuana, heroin, and that was a really interesting experience. And what I did was I tied, each type of addiction together, because no matter, you can be addicted to anything. And that was the point. And that it was we need to start seeking help and providing help, and stop stereotyping, what it means to go to AA or NA or something like that, that these people are reaching out for help, and to make it more accepted. So, and then the third book is called Weighted Wings, and again with butterfly the wings. And that in that book, I interviewed, I believe 8 or 10 different types of women with eating disorders. And again, food can be something else that you're addicted to or have a distorted relationship with. And that was really interesting, in, how these women had used food to suppress a lot of emotions that had come up from traumatic events in their lives. And again, just, making resources available and seeking help. And then the last book was Working Out of My Cocoon. And in that book, I just wrote, it's a poetry book. And it's just a culmination of all these poems that I had written. I had collected 55 poems, and my mom died at age 55. So it was kind of a symbolic of that, and something I just wanted to complete the series with. And so the number 5 is something that my mom, it's just the number 5 is another symbolic thing of hers. So my 5th book, I plan to publish my dissertation. And so I'm in the works of that. And that's basically, that's the gist of the books that I've written.
Yeah.
And I did that all through COVID.
So, at least you put that, that time idle, I guess you could say, time to good use. You weren't idle with it. A lot of people, that's, once COVID hit, it was like they shut their lives down. So it's interesting to see someone that actually took that time and made something with it instead of just wasting it, It's interesting, the whole concept of addiction, and then like health and the different types of addiction. It made me think of, so I used to work for a police department for a local hospital here, and it was a big hospital, one of the biggest ones in the country. And I was assigned to different departments. One of the departments that we're commonly assigned to, for, people can understand for obvious reasons, was like psych units and stuff like that. And a lot of the psych patients, it would be like all encompassing. Like it would be rare to find someone with just one problem. It almost seemed like the problem went to another problem, to another problem, so where they basically had this like ball of issues. So sometimes you would have people come in and they would be addiction to drugs, but then at the same time they would also have like eating disorders, and they would obviously have mental issues and stuff like that. So it's really sad to see, and you can really understand, if you really think about it, how difficult it can be for someone to battle against something like that, because you can't even know where to begin. Like, where do you even begin? What do you think about like therapy and things like that? Do you think that's a good starting point for someone to, kind of start trying to resolve these issues? I mean, there might be clinical issues as well, but let's just stick to, just the behavioral aspect of it.
Sure. I mean, there's three main types of therapy that someone could seek. They could seek behavioral health, which is like cognitive behavioral therapy, just the classic, like sitting across on the couch from the psychologist or psychiatrist.
Mhm.
And then there's the group. So that would be attending meetings or groups that centered, had similar experiences as you and sharing and overcoming together. And then there's also the pharmacological, which are medications, right? So there
Mhm.
are medications out there that, something like methadone, or there's different FDA approved medications that actually, if you were to ingest alcohol, you would instantly puke it.
Mhm.
Those do exist.
Mhm.
And it just depends, and the nature of addiction, is high in relapse. And so sometimes your initial approach is not necessarily the best approach for you. And you just learn along the way, what's helping you stay sober longer.
Mhm.
And having a support system is really important too.
Yeah, it makes me think of, so if you change, like you talked about relapsing, you change something for the better, right? This happens a lot of times with people that might be in prison, right? And
Mhm.
they will change their behaviors. So they're getting out, they've changed their behaviors, their mindset, they're going to do better. And a lot of the issues come from being in the same environment. So I find that sometimes with people that have addiction issues, like with drugs or alcohol, they're they get better mentally put themselves in a place where, okay, I'm going to start doing this. I've had a period of time where I am doing better, but they never get out of that environment, meaning like maybe they have some friends that, are involved in that kind of behavior. Maybe they live in an area where that behavior is popular, or whatever the case may be, that becomes a trigger for them. How important is it to just, change your environment when when you're dealing with something like that?
Sure. Many times people who start the recovery process, and let's say that they're working the 12 steps in AA and they start going to meetings, eventually their social world does become the people from meetings. And
Mhm.
even in my study, I interviewed different people and it was about exercise and alcoholism. Well, these people were actually like going to the gym with people from AA, and they found a whole new community there's like different gyms,
Mhm.
different corporate places, and they would find that their whole new little niche was the people that they met at the time that they went to go exercise. And it was another form of accountability, that you're supposed to meet a couple people at a certain place in a certain time and do something healthy and positive for yourself. And so oftentimes that means leaving past relationships and people that, were toxic and that are triggers to what you're trying to do. And so, it would how would it even be possible to remain sober or clean if you used to be in a relationship with someone that you were using with? How could you remain in that relationship if you decided to stop and they didn't?
Yeah.
And it's, of course, easier said than done. I mean, we have
Mhm.
emotional attachments, but we have to make sure that um, that we do what's best for ourselves sometimes, and that might be leaving certain places, people, and things. But at the same time, no matter where you go, you are you. So you can't change who you are at the root and at the core. But sometimes the environment can help with that.
Have you ever encountered, let me put it this way. They say that whenever you're addicted to something, you have an addiction problem, it never goes away. Have you ever encountered a situation where someone like completely doesn't have any triggers or no draws to the addiction? Or is it usually that they're always, dealing with it, even if they've been, you know, 20 years removed or 30 years removed from that experience?
I mean, I worked with someone who had been sober for 33 years and still went to 2 meetings every week.
Mm.
It never goes away. It remains a threat. It's just the way that your brain is wired. And even for someone like me, I'm well aware that I have an addictive personality. And so, I don't drink or anything because I know I have the genes for it. And I mean, clearly, I don't do anything in moderation in my life. So I have to steer clear of things that could negatively affect just my health and overall well-being.
So I always wondered when people said that they have an addictive personality. And I mean, I guess to a degree, like I could say I have that at some things and maybe other things not so much. But when someone says they have an addictive personality, and I think you might have kind of answered it a little bit there, that is that what you mean by you don't, whatever you take on, you do it full blast, like no moderation, just from 0 to 100?
Yeah, it's full speed ahead. It's all or nothing. And it just becomes like a one way street, right?
Mm.
And sometimes when you have an addictive personality, they say addiction is very selfish. So you just become focused on what it is that you're doing. And for me, it's like what it is that I want to accomplish and achieve. And sometimes it's just like nothing or no one will stand in my way of doing that, which is, positive in many aspects, but also it can be isolating.
Mhm.
And it can be difficult to have a social life or something like that when it would kind of throw off what your strategy is or your plan is.
Yeah. Sometimes sports, particularly bodybuilding, but also other sports can be very much like that because, you're so focused on improving yourself, being better, at this thing that that it kind of takes on its own, existence for you, and everyone else kind of falls by the wayside, family, friends, so forth, social life. So it can definitely have, while like sports maybe have a lot of positive associated with it, and maybe the right term is saying maybe in the wrong hands, it could be a very negative, situation there as well. But um, I was
Mhm.
I was also gonna talk about the fact that you mentioned you wrote these books in COVID. We were just talked about how sometimes being in a relationship while you're in addicted or dealing with an addiction can be very tough, especially if the person hasn't made the same choices as you. With COVID happening, it really kind of, I believe, made it very difficult for people that are in that situation. What do you think, as far as like they couldn't really go out, they couldn't really do anything, they were kind of stuck in their homes. If your home life is set up that way, I mean, how much more difficult would it be to even deal with an addiction issue, right?
Right. I mean, mental health definitely was tested during COVID, and the resources that you had that were part of your routine that, was keeping you sober might have been taken away. And we know, a lot of things went to online, but it wasn't the same in-person experience. And so
Mhm.
I think that, just the way that we ran our routine day to day was so affected that at first it was kind
Right.
of it was shocking. We didn't really ease into it. It just came all at once. And I think that, typically when you might use a substance or you might drink, it's kind of to check out and to
Mhm.
not feel. And I think that COVID made us start feeling a lot because there wasn't a whole lot that we could do anymore to distract ourselves. And so
Mhm.
I think a lot of things came to the surface for people, and especially, in their home life and in their relationships. I know for me and my husband, our relationship became like way stronger during COVID, experiencing that something like that together and
Mhm.
getting through it as a small business owner. I mean, my mental health was really, really messed up. Um, but it could have gone the other way too, right? Like that many
Mhm.
people just became disgusted and annoyed of each other and just could no longer stand being with them. So um, I just think that you have to know who's in your corner. And I really feel like COVID showed to us who really truly cared about you and who was going to be there through thick and thin. I found that personally with friends and family, like who was really there for me. And I valued that. And even my clients, I mean, many of them continued to pay for my services, even though I was trying to go online, because they had said to me, if I don't pay you, you won't be there when I get back. I need you, you know, and I can't wait to come back. And I was sending these online plans, and some of them were like, I'm never going to do it. Keep sending it, but I'm never going to do it. Just when we come back, when we come back, you know, and I'm like, I appreciate that. And those people, you know, and even I think that it was all about becoming a little bit more flexible and helping each other out. I mean, during COVID, my studio rent got raised twice. I mean, it was unbelievable. And so, many of my clients, you know, had said or come to me like, I can't afford to come anymore because they had obviously lost their jobs or anything like that. And I would honestly, I just tried to say, you know, why don't you help me and I'll help you? What can you pay me? And that's what we did. And it was like, for me, it just felt like now's not the time to be greedy. Something is better than nothing. And to have them when this all turns around is way better than just saying, okay, well, bye.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, you know, they were loyal to you, but I think also by you doing that, you really show, you know, your loyalty to them, because, you know, I didn't think about, I mean, I've thought about it in the past, not during our conversation, until you mentioned that you as a small business owner dealing with financial pressures of COVID. I mean, that's got to be tough. I was just thinking of the gym that I used to go to, and the reason that I don't go to it anymore is because it closed down, and it was a fairly successful gym. But when COVID hit, it's like everybody ran, you know, like roaches, and there was no, you know, money coming in. Rent got raised extremely high. So, and they just couldn't do it anymore. And then so they shut down. But in your case, I mean, it's obvious that you know, you have a connection with your clients, and that's kind of the difference between you know, being like a personal trainer that's connected to your clients, and one that just kind of sends out info, right? Because I mean, anybody can do that, but it's like, but it takes a special kind of person to you know, adjust to whatever your clients need. In most cases, it's, well, a need for, you know, I need like this kind of diet or this kind of adjustment. But in this particular case, it was a very special need. It was a financial need. So, you know, you made an arrangement there that benefited, you know, everybody. So I think that's an awesome thing. That's, you know, that had to have been tough for you.
It was. I mean, they would also, you know, they were doing the thing where like they drive by my house and check on me. You know, you weren't supposed to have like contact with people.
Yeah.
But I really, geez, I got down to like 103 pounds during COVID. I got really like emaciated. It wasn't that I had changed my eating or anything. It was just like how some people gain weight with stress. I do the opposite.
I see.
I just like, I could be ravenous and eat, and I just burn right through it. It's like my body's shaking, and, you know, and I do have anxiety, and, you know, I do take medication to address that. So you can only imagine how exasperated that got during COVID. And I mean, I broke the enamel off of 8 of my teeth from grinding at night, just being so worried. And in that sense too, I went to the dentist, and I was crying because you know, my teeth are really important to me. My smile is really important to me. And, you know, he was like, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. And, you know, he told me how much it was going to cost. I think it was like a couple $1,000s. And I was just like, my business is closed right now. I don't know. I'm just going to have to, I don't know what I can do. And he said, well, I don't normally do this, but how much can you pay me? And it was like the same thing. And I said, well, I mean, I can pay you. It's just over time. Right. I can make some payments over time. Absolutely. And he was like, okay, whatever you want to give the front desk, and then we'll break it up. And she literally put my card on file. And it was like the 10th of every month, she would call me before and say, are we okay to run your card for this?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, I mean, just compassion of other people really meant a lot.
Yeah.
But you know, I also had very negative experiences with people too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that came out of a lot of their fear and being scared. You know, I had people, there was one day I was in my gym and I was on the treadmill, like by myself,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody called the cops on me, saying that I was still training people in my gym when it was supposed to be shut down. And the cop
Wow.
came to the door and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm just walking on the treadmill. And he's like, this is unbelievable. And he was like, the next time you come here to work out, close the door. And I was like,
Mm.
okay.
It's
Just, it was, you know, it's like, and then someone who called had to be someone who had no idea what small businesses were going through. Those who got to stay open were considered essential. I mean, how could they possibly relate to someone who's like shut down and has no idea when it's going to come back?
Yeah,
So
it's wild. It was wild because that was actually happening to a lot of places, like even to the point where I was talking to one of the ladies that she actually got top 5 in the last couple of Olympias in the figure division, and she's in New York, and New York got hit, you know, really bad. And so there was like underground gyms like that people would go to that nobody would talk about. It became like something like, who would have ever thought that going to the gym would have been considered something akin to like the 1920s like ban of alcohol, where they had those underground, like, you know, whiskey lodges and stuff like that. It's like that was akin to
yeah.
that. It was
And
like you were I'm
some of
sorry.
the local businesses were doing that. They were putting like tarps up so
Mm-hmm.
that you couldn't see through. And I didn't want to take the risk of the health or safety for anybody. And like I
Sure.
said, I work with middle-aged and older clients, so that just wasn't going to happen for me. And
Right.
you know, what I did do was I was super proactive about all of the grants and that were coming out. So I got both of the PPPs. I got both of those, and I got both of them forgiven, so I didn't have to pay any of the loans back.
Mm-hmm.
And then I applied for a California State Fund grant. I got that, and then the city of Oceanside gave me 2 grants as well.
Mm.
So I mean, what I can say is that I spent a lot of time on the phone and on hold during COVID, but I had nothing but time, and it would be like, I mean, it would be because everybody was applying for this stuff. You'd be on hold for like an hour and you're like, I don't,
Yeah.
and I just sat through it and I was like, eventually it's going to be my turn.
Yeah.
And I had, you know, I had some really great, a really great team of people who helped me with, you know, my bookkeeping and all of that. So they were
Mm-hmm.
just so on top of it and helping me, and whatever I needed, they were there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing because you know, a lot of people didn't have that, and they, you know, they just went under there. You know, when you get shut down like that and you can't make income, but your, you know, your creditors or whoever you rent the place from doesn't care, you know, we're in COVID, you know, it's a terrible situation to be in. So, but I'm glad you made it out of it. You're better than ever, apparently, what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a trickle down effect, right? Like and it was interesting how my neighbors weren't paying their rent for the landlord at the business, and yet somehow he raised my rent when I was the only one still paying him. And it
Mm.
just felt so heartless. So
Yeah.
like I was saying, it was like, it was either one or the other. People care or they just don't care.
Yeah.
And you know, to this day, you know, he can't even look me in the eye because he knows, like, I
Right.
did him a solid too. When I got one of those loans. You were supposed to apply it to any business related expenses, right? So it was
Mm-hmm.
a good amount of money. I paid him 6 months in advance because
Mm.
I knew nobody else was paying him, and this is what I'm supposed to spend that money on if I want it to be forgiven. And then after that 6 months, month 7, he raised that rent. And
Mm.
it just felt like a stab in the heart. But, you know,
Yeah.
everybody was trying to make it. And sometimes, I know as a business owner, sometimes it's just business, and it is tough when people have personal circumstances and situations, and you just have to say, you know what, this is something you signed up for, and you have to finish the commitment that you started.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess to your point there, I mean, it's obviously a terrible thing that what he did, but we don't know, and maybe you do, but I don't. Maybe he has some obligations that somebody's pressing on him to fulfill, and he needs that money, and since nobody's paying, and you're the you're the person that he went after.
Yeah,
So.
that's what I'm saying. It was just that trickle down effect,
Yeah.
and everyone was being affected in some way.
Sure. Well, to pivot to more future endeavors. So you're doing your dissertation, you've got your fifth book, you're probably in the process of writing, I'm assuming, right? Or at least thinking about it, the concepts.
Well, no, I've already written it.
Oh, okay.
So right now it's going to be it's going to be published academically. So it's going through, first it publishes through the university, and then there's academic journals that once the university is able to finish everything up, I'll get that back. And then I've had a couple opportunities fall into my lap. So, and then also I was asked by the MedFit Network to be part of their medical fitness advisory board. And right now I'm currently writing a course about working with clients on the autistic spectrum disorder, and how we can accommodate their specific needs. So that's been really interesting, and something I was just working on before we were talking.
Yeah, that's such a broad subject matter, autism. I don't even want to go down that road. We don't even have enough time, to even consider it. But yeah, I remember you mentioning that you were going to be so busy because of that. So that's exciting news. What about your personal competitive endeavors? I know you just, like we talked about earlier, you just competed. Are you planning on competing anytime this year?
Yeah, I have I've got one in July coming up, and then August, and then November.
Oh, so you've got a few. Well, so what's the
yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's my thing.
So what's the goal for that? Are you like trying to just, come in first at every show? Is there something, is there a bigger show that you're like trying to shoot for, or like the end all goal for that?
I'm just a very competitive person. So when I get up there on stage, I'm in my zone and in my element, and I just love being up there with all the lights and the makeup and all the hard work, the culmination of it. And I mean, I do like to win. That is my thing. And
thing is to win.
And I mean, I work so hard for it too. And my husband is like my biggest cheerleader, so he always comes with me. So I've got those lined up, in one's in Vegas and then the other in Arizona. In the meantime, in May, I'm going to Chicago to actually do the formal walk for my doctorate, the graduation. So that's exciting.
Wow.
I've only been on an airplane once since COVID, and that was when I went to Arizona a few weeks ago, and that was only an hour flight. So we'll see, what that's like after COVID.
Well, I've been on a plane once or twice. It's an experience. It definitely was an experience and not to go too much into it or spend too much time on this, but it was an experience to try to maneuver with masks on, like in an airplane environment or an airport environment, with just all those people and everything like that. It was different. But now I just read recently, and I don't know if this applies for like every state or how this works, but certain airlines are now amending the mask mandate. So
the mask mandate has been lifted for airplane travel, Uber, and Lyft. So
so now I guess
that will be different from my last experience.
Say that again. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
So that will be different than the last time I was on an airplane.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm ready to take the mask off the whole time though.
Yeah, everybody's different, and to be honest with you, it's like sometimes I wear it and then other times I don't, but I do still tend to lean, especially in an environment like an airplane where air is recycled as opposed to just coming in one way and leaving the other. It's I would probably wear one just to be on the safe side, but that's just me. That's my own personal opinion.
Well,
Everybody's
yeah, and in my own personal opinion too, it's not even just about COVID to me. It just brought to light how much germs are on there.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I think I lost you. Oh no. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Are you muted? Don't look muted. Okay, there you go.
No,
I can hear
no,
now.
I'm not. Okay,
Okay. Yeah,
okay, great.
so you were saying that there's a lot more germs on the planes.
Well, you know, that there's just a lot more germs, and I'm like, I don't want to get sick at all now. So
Right.
it's not even just COVID anymore. I'm like, maybe this wasn't such a bad idea in this type of setting to have this on.
Right.
So
That's what my wife always says. She's actually just about to graduate from nursing school, and she always says like, I don't have time to be sick. So it's not even a matter of like, oh, I'm gonna get COVID, I'm gonna die. It's like I'm just too busy. I can't afford to like just be sick. So so that's always good practice, I guess.
right.
Yeah. Well, Megan, thank you so much. I know, like I said earlier when we started, I know your time is very valuable. You got a lot of things going on, and I'm sure the people that you're involved with are very appreciative of your hard work. I'm very appreciative of your time, and thank you so much. And guys, if you like this episode, like it, subscribe. And I'll attach everything at the bottom as far as Megan's contact information and her link to her books. So you're more than welcome to go ahead and click on that and check it out. So thanks again, Megan.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.